Well, greetings everyone, and welcome back here to Metarog's channel and another one of my more personal comic book videos. And this is really I think, a pretty neat one. But this is a really deep dive into a tale of obscurity here. I'll get to that in a minute. So I'm making this video because I've been researching this publisher, and I came up with a few oddities, right? And when I started looking deeper and deeper and deeper in the issues that I had and the ones that I didn't, but I researched online, I found a lot of interesting little tidbits, right? And I'm talking about Israel Waldman, which is the imprint for Super Comics from 1963-64. Now, the IW reprints and the Super reprints are by the same man, Israel Waldman, but he did two different series, the 1958 reprints and the 1963-64 reprints. Overall, he did about 300 some odd issues of reprints. But the interesting thing about Mr. Waldman is not that he did reprints, it's the fact that these reprints were unauthorized. Okay, he did not have the intellectual rights to these characters. What he did is he actually bought the print shop or the excess inventory, the plates of the actual comics from these defunct publishers, with the exception of Timely, which he had a few funny animal and mystery issues as well. And he just printed them out with new covers and put them out for sale, not on newsstands apparently, but like on grocery stores, drugstores, but not on the newsstand, okay? And I suppose that was due to him trying to avoid the direct scrutiny of these publishers' intellectual properties. However, you know, apparently it either didn't work or he got found out, apparently, because, you know, again, he had a 5-year hiatus, and he had to change the name from IW to Super. So anyway, so all kinds of shenanigans there were going on. And later on, in the mid 67 or so, or early 70s, he partnered up with Sal Brodsky and came up with Skywalk Comics. That was legit stuff. But this here was really, really interesting. You imagine buying a print shop that had the actual plates for the comic and just telling them, hey, print them off and we'll sell them, but with original covers, different titles, things like that. Obviously, if he used the original covers, that would have been a dead giveaway that he was doing some copyright violations. But if he changed the cover and he didn't really, you know, advertise what was inside, you know, perhaps it would slide by. And again, it did for a while, but I mean, obviously, this didn't continue for very long. So why am I telling you all this? This video is really not about the IW reprints. It is, in fact, about 3 comics that weren't reprints, but were comics that were never published. Because the whole thrust behind Israel Waldman's reprints were that he did it from companies that were defunct, so that, again, there would be no issues, or he thought there would be no issues with him being sued for copyright, etc. However, what happened is that since he purchased these in the mid-50s, or late to mid-50s, and maybe even in the 60s, you know, these companies went out of business. A lot of these companies went out of business, like Chesler, etc., back in the 40s, but a lot of them went out of business after the introduction of the Comics Code, right? Because they just couldn't compete. They figured, you know, they would have to change their characters too much, and you know, the whole bit. So they just sort of said, forget it. So a lot of these issues were actually sent to the print shop to be printed, but were abruptly halted because the company went under. So they never saw the light of day. And this particular video is about 3 of those issues. So I'm finally getting to that, right? So let's start with this one. So again, let me preface this, right? This issue here contains a full comic book, which was originally supposed to be Zor the Mighty #3, I do believe. And this was published by Chesler, actually Superior, which I think is like their imprint. But it never actually was published because Chesler went under in the mid-40s, I want to say, before this was ever saw print and went to the newsstand. But the plate for the actual comic existed. And when Israel Waldman bought the print shop or the inventory of Chesler, this was in there, and he probably didn't even know that this was had never been printed. But it is in fact a full issue of Zor the Mighty, probably Zor the Mighty #3, that was never published and was published here in 1963 by again, IW or Super Comics, and retitled Fantastic Adventures. A lot of the titles here are kind of generic comic book titles, you know, sort of get your, pique your interest kind of thing. And again, new covers. This one here is by Ross Andrew. IW had various artists, Carl Borges, various others I can't recall right now, but Ross Andrew did like a whole bunch of them. So again, this is all the rest of the Super Comics are reprints except for these 3, except I think there's one other that is new material, but it's not from a defunct publisher. It's actually something that that IW came up with themselves. But this here is interesting because again, this character hadn't been seen for almost 20 years. And all of a sudden, you know, he shows up here, and this issue, the interior of this issue, never saw print except for under the Super Comics publisher. Okay, so, you know, sometimes, you know, these underhanded deals actually, for us comic book fans, right, actually it was a good thing, because we would never have seen this issue, the contents of this issue, if it weren't for, you know, the kind of underhanded dealings of Israel Waldman. So that's the first one. Again, this is like his 3rd appearance, right? And this is the next one. And this is Danger #16, but really it's, again, these are, by the way, this is not just a Zor story. It's an anthology. It has like a story of a Viking, has a few funny animal stories, etc., etc. And the same thing with this. You know, there are various stories here, Johnny Rebel, and this was another issue that was at Chesler or Superior, and probably was supposed to be Yankee Comics #5, I do believe. And this is Yankee Girl. This is the second Yankee Girl, and this is her second actual appearance. And again, this never was published originally back in the 40s, because again, Chesler went under while the print shop had the plates, and they never printed them because they never got the go-ahead to do that. So it just sat in their inventory, apparently, or in the inventory of Chesler, and when it was bought out by Israel Waldman. And, you know, funny, this is just, it's a real, you know, patriotic heroine. She says Yankee Doodle Dandy, and she turns into Yankee Girl. She can fly. I think she's stronger than normal and has endurance, etc., etc. And again, there are other, you know, features in here, but this would be the second appearance ever of Yankee Girl. Again, almost 20 years later. So that's the second one. Now, the most interesting one to me is the third one, and that is Daring Adventures #18. And the reason that this is the most interesting one to me is because this contains a comic character which had never been seen before. This was supposed to be published by Albrecht, which only published one other issue ever, and that's Conqueror Comics, which I do have, by the way, but it's buried here in my room here that I'm storing my comics in. But I'll see if I can link the video where I had the One Shot Publishers video here that I did several years ago. But again, they were never, they either went out of business or just ran out of money or something. Or somehow this slipped through the cracks, and this was never published. And this is a character, which this is, as far as I know, the only appearance of this character, Atlas. Okay. And again, it was supposed to come out in the mid to late 40s, I do believe, but it never did. Okay. And the cool thing about this one is that Charles Atlas, the famous bodybuilder, actually had an input into this issue, into this character. In fact, this whole comic is sort of sports related. It has Atlas, and then it has a football player, it has a boxer, and it has a little kind of brief biography of Babe Ruth. And this is very, very typical Golden Age stuff. Weakling gets pushed around and then is seen or is chosen by Atlas, the god of strength, of power, I forgot, and given the ability if he exercises to be super strong. And yeah, look at this costume with the leopard print hot shorts, that big fist there, big high yellow collar, and of course bulging muscles, and he just gets right into the superhero vein, starts jumping on cars, swinging on lines here, and starts spouting things like, you too can be, a hero if you, eat well, exercise, and do the right thing, essentially. So again, just your typical Golden Age superhero fare here that would never have seen the light of day were it not for Israel Waldman. Here's like the little secrets of super strength. This is the part I do believe that was written by Charles Atlas. And again, there's the part with the boxer. Again, these, I believe, are characters that the only time they appeared were in these issues. And the football player, and of course Babe Ruth is the legendary baseball player right there, Sultan of Swat. So again, these are the only 3 issues in the whole IW Super Comics library that were not actually reprints, but were unused stories from the Golden Age that, due to him buying the printing plates of hundreds of comics, these happened to be in there, as they were sent to the print shop but were never actually printed because the publishers went out of business before they actually got printed. But if it wasn't for him buying this stuff, we may never have been able to read or to know that these even existed, because you never know. So those plates could have been destroyed if they were not sold at some point in the future. And that's it. That's what I got for you today. I just thought this was a really interesting little historical footnote here of comics and Golden Age comics that came out in the Silver Age for the very first time. Very, very unique kind of situation, which brought these to light and to our delight actually exist. So thanks again for stopping by and hearing me babble on about all kinds of obscure stuff that I just love to talk about. I really do appreciate the support of this very loving community. All right, I'll get out of here. Next week will be another roundup, more contests coming down the road. And everybody knows what I'm going to say. Be kind to each other, guys. Be patient. Be blessed. And be back.